Good morning. Today on Spotlight, Peter Lucido, the Republican state senator representing Shelby Township and much of Macomb County. He's also the chair of the Michigan Senate Judiciary Committee. From roads to marijuana, he'll discuss it all. And later, Sandy Barua and Dennis Archer Jr. on the upcoming Detroit Policy Conference. And we'll check in with Michigan members of Congress, Debbie Dingell and Fred Upton, about President Trump's call for a national emergency regarding the wall. It's Sunday, February the 24th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. Senator Lucido, thanks
good morning,
for coming
Chuck.
in today.
My pleasure.
You were at the governor's state of the state. Your immediate reaction? Good speech?
Yeah, I think it's at least is humbling to find somebody who wants to be a public servant the way people want to hear public servants. The problem is it takes money to do the things that she needs to have done.
Well, she had a laundry list of things she wants to get done. She hasn't presented her budget yet. That comes up in March. And I think that's the biggest thing that came out of it. People said, okay, we know what you want to do. Now, how will we pay for all of this? Chief among that, of course, is the roads. It's what she got elected on. It's something that people expect her to deliver on. What does she have to do in terms of a plan that you think will get through the legislature?
Had this discussion with her, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because when you go around the state toting the fact that fix the damn roads, you better have your money where your mouth is. And the reason is the legislature did everything last term, even allocated an additional $300 million from the general fund. So between the gas tax, the registration fees, the federal money coming in, and the general fund, it equaled about $5 billion. I don't see it. And the revenue conference that just happened in January, we're $185 million shortfall from where we were last year. So if you're also going to get rid of the pension tax of $300 million, where's all this money going to come from? And I want to hear it. One more thing, Chuck, I think it's important for the listeners. We're still paying off the bonding during Governor Engler's era. We're still paying.
Governor Engler's there. That was a few governors ago.
Yes, it was.
What do you say to people, and we've heard this already from the leadership of both the House and the Senate, let's make sure that, one, we are doing our due diligence with the money we already have before we start talking about new stream of money coming in. Is there enough money in the pot right now to fix Michigan's roads?
No. And you know what? And no one's going to be able to. If the money is in the pot, then you have to what's called redistribute it from registration fees as well as fix Public Act 51.
So you got to take it from somewhere else and put it directly towards the roads.
Yeah.
Is there enough money even to do that?
Yes, and I'll show you how. 6% on the sales tax goes to schools. It should have never happened. They should have had a policy that was sound in theory. Any tax that comes in from gas that goes into an automobile to break the roads should have went to the roads, not putting
But if you take that, then you're taking from schools.
Yeah.
This is a governor who campaigned on both a road agenda and an education agenda.
She sure did.
Isn't she going to get beat up by the MEA and all the educators if she starts taking money from education?
If she does it, she's going to have to backfill education with somewhere else. So you stop a leak here, but it sprouts over here, which means if you're taking it and adding it to the roads, you need to backfill over here, the schools, because I don't want to see any child without an education in the state. Also, the registration fees. In Macomb County, for instance, we're the third largest county for registration fees. First is Detroit, or Wayne County. Second is Oakland, and third is Macomb. She needs to sit down with the leadership and says, Act 51 has been around, it's archaic, it's outdated, and it's unfair. We have the most people registering vehicles in Southeast Michigan. Let's fix the roads down there, and she'll get elected again. Because you know why? That's who put her in office the first time.
What do you think the legislature and the governor can sell to the people? Because the people will say, yes, I want the roads fixed, but then they'll say right after that, I don't want any more money coming out of my pocket.
Yeah, it's always nice to give away free tuition, as she's indicated, 2 years of community colleges, but where are you going to get the money? The people want all these services as well as free tuition, but it takes money, and guess what? If you're taking away from health and human services for our most vulnerable people, I'm not a big fan of that, and I will be a definite no. Don't touch that which we need to fix that's not broke, and that's giving it to the people that need it the most.
Is there a tax that you think the people will go for?
I sure as heck hope not, because I'm a no. I was a no on the registration fees on the first vote, no on the gas tax increase. I'll be a no again, because you have to make sure you redistribute Public Act 51 first, putting it where it's needed most, and then I will look at whether or not it's important to get more money in. And here's one more thing. Chuck, in 2021, at the end of the year, we will have infused all the money that was from the vote in the last 2 terms, raising the gas tax as well as the registration. Why don't we wait and see? Let's do that, because I don't think even giving all the money, that $1.5 billion more that they want, do we have the skilled trades? Do we have the equipment? Do we have the aggregate to get out there and fix the roads when we only have about 6 months to 7 months out of the year?
All right, we only have a few weeks before the governor presents her budget, and we'll see hopefully what her plan is going to be. We are going to take a quick break. We'll hurry right back and deal with a whole bunch of other issues. Governor Whitmer has paraded several people before your committee who she wants to be her directors. Your impressions so far?
So far, so good. It's the Advice and Consent Committee. I'm chairing that committee, as well as Jay Carr and Vice Chair of Oversight. These committees are awesome because of this. I get a chance to meet her directors. When a new administration comes in, all of a sudden they pick new directors. They pick people that they feel will add value to the state of Michigan, and more importantly, stewardship of the things that we have of precious nature. And as taxpayers, we want to get somebody who's uniquely qualified, but more importantly, giving us the best bang for the buck, that's somebody who is skilled and artful in the issues that face this state.
You're an attorney. Mayor Duggan says, look, there's civil rights violation on auto insurance reform, and he has taken it to the courts because he couldn't get it done through the House of Representatives in 2017. Is he right?
He could be. I'm looking at what Judge Stee said, and he's from Macomb County. He's the judge in charge of that case. He said, if you're making a law or a mandate that says that you must have insurance that is unaffordable because of pricing the person who works in the state, who doesn't make enough money to even feed themselves and put a roof over their head, you have an unconstitutional mandate, is what the argument is, in the law, because you've outpriced it for people to afford. And you know what? I mean, that's a question up to a trier of fact that says, is the cost of insurance so far burdensome that you are now putting people at risk of breaking the law? The jury's out on this, and whether or not you're allowed to have that, I think if it's unfair from the beginning, you are violating rights. It's the #1 bill of the Senate. It is the #1 priority of the Senate. And I'm telling all the viewers out there, it's going to get done this term in the Senate. Now the House, the bill goes on over there. Whatever we do in the Senate.
House didn't do it last time. Have the numbers changed enough? Has the will of the people and perhaps the legislators changed enough to be able to do something?
It better be, because it's too damn expensive, and we need to go ahead and correct the wrongs that have been done. Everybody should be entitled to a choice, and that choice is with any other insurance except auto no fault. And choice is where I'm at. Give the people what they can afford, not what we put in front of them. That's where I'm at.
You have concern over the legalization of marijuana in the state. The voters voted for it overwhelmingly. They said they want it. They've now got it. But as a lawyer and someone over the Judiciary Committee, you're concerned about this conflict between state law and federal law.
United States Attorney's Office has been put on notice that, #1, marijuana is still a Schedule I under federal law. Marijuana sales is still against the law. Marijuana proceeds cannot and shall not be placed in a federal banking institution.
How many state-owned banks in this state?
Handful. And this is where the problem lies, because you're putting those individuals that are dispensaries, grow operation, transporters at risk of getting robbed. Because if there's not a safe harbor to put it in a bank like we do with any other business, why is it that the state is allowing this to continue? I understand what the voters did, and I'm fine with it. The reality is, if you're making these business and going through LARA, which is the licensing, at the end of the day, don't you think you owe those individuals that are running those businesses safe harbor to make sure that they can put their money in the bank and present themselves to commerce?
Mr. Chairman, in the Governor's State of the State, she said it's time to expand the Freedom of Information Act to the executive branch and the legislature. Is she right, and will that get done? Because it didn't get through the Senate the last session.
How can I not say she's not right? She is 100% right. Whether or not the sunshine is going to go all the way through to the governor's office on every level, as well as the legislature, certain things are private, especially somebody who is a constituent that is looking after services, if they're in special needs. Those things, as far as their name, should be redacted, and the services that we're forwarding these individuals. Why? It's unfair to disclose personal information about anybody in this state, let alone. But if it's something that deals with the legislative tactics and or the money that's going and coming, you're darn right. Everything is on the table, and nothing should be off the table.
You've sort of made it to Hollywood. Famous picture that is in the movie Vice about Vice President Cheney. You're front and center on that. You've been catching a lot of flack, good or bad, from your constituents or anyone else as a result of this photo?
I never understood why that photo made it so, I guess, popular.
The intensity of your face says it all.
A
picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, and you know what? The way I look at it is this. I went to Lansing to do a job, not get a job. I'm going to stay with that mantra, which is this. The people deserve the very best. And then whether you're an R or a D, you still give it to the P, the people.
All right, we're not going to see you signing up for the Motion Picture Union because you're off to Hollywood.
Nah.
All right. Senator, thank
Nice
you
to
so much
see
for
you.
coming in.
Great to
We'll
be
get
here.
you back.
Thanks.
All right. When Spotlight returns, Sandy Brewer and Dennis Archer Jr. of the Detroit Regional Chamber. Stay with us. Good morning. Good having both of you.
Thanks.
Sandy, another conference coming up. This is the Detroit end of it, sort of a kickoff before you go up north to Mackinac. What's on tap for this year in terms of the logistics? When is it? Where is it? People still want to get it.
So this is our annual Detroit Policy Conference. This is the time when we gather just our region to talk about issues important to the city of Detroit and the extended region. It's going to be the 28th of February. We've been holding it at Motor City Casino every year. We wanted a location that was easily accessible at a lower dollar cost so everyone in the region could participate. You don't have to take the trip all the way up to the island.
Dennis, you've been very involved in this. You're chairing this, and you've brought a real vision to this. Talk about that.
Yeah, Chuck, I mean, I think it's important. You know, Sandy and I were talking a little earlier today about how, you know, as a state, the governor is going to have her present her budget about a week or so after our Detroit Policy Conference. The city has to have a balanced budget by the July 1st. And publicly traded companies have to report their earnings on a quarterly and annual basis. And so many times all of those institutions are focused on the now because they have to be. They have to report to citizens, stakeholders, et cetera.
Right.
What we wanted to do with this conference, Detroit 2030, looking at what we want Detroit to look like in that year and what we have to do to prepare to get there, is to have that conversation, to not talk about the now with the exception of what we need to do now to achieve the vision that we collectively have for the city of Detroit in year 2030. And so if you look at the wide variety of folks that we have coming in, leading political and civic leaders, younger entrepreneurs, we're all going to be having that discussion about what we need to do to get to what we want Detroit to look like in the year 2030.
And a big part of this, and you're going to be leading some of those discussions, will be talking about inclusion, and that it's not just the Dan Gilberts that are doing everything, that there's opportunities for people of all different realms.
Yeah, well, that's very important. It's very important, first of all, to the chamber. You know, under Sandy's leadership, if you look at just the diversity of our board of directors, it has become much more inclusive. If you look at the people that we have, you know, committees, people that we have on stage in Mackinac and Detroit, it's very inclusive. And so that's important to the chamber and us as an organization. For me as a African-American businessman doing business in the city of Detroit, It's very important to me that there be equal opportunity for all. And I think that there's messaging out there, or there's a perception that there's a few very large, well-heeled institutions or individuals that are gobbling up everything. And to some extent, a lot of the most newsworthy deals are being done by those individuals. But there's a lot of great stuff going on in the neighborhoods. There's a lot of women-owned and minority-owned businesses who are participating and starting up downtown, throughout Midtown, and even in the neighborhood. So we just want to bring recognition to those doing those things, but more importantly, speak to the importance of achieving our 2030 vision. It's going to require that we be inclusive.
You're going to hear from Michigan's top leadership. You're going to hear from our new governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and as Dennis said, her budget is going to drop the week after the conference, so that's going to be newsworthy. We're going to hear from the lieutenant governor, Gilchrist, who is obviously a longtime Detroiter, cares passionately about this city. You're going to hear from our great mayor, Mike Duggan, and we're going to be talking about the 2020 census and how important the 2020 census is to Detroit and to Michigan. You're going to hear from some of our other leaders like Dan Gilbert, but you're also going to hear from people who have been involved in making sure that our success in this region looks like our region. As Dennis said, the diversity and inclusion, it's not just for a handful of organizations or people. That what we want in 2030 is for Detroit to be vibrant for all. And we mean all, we mean really underscore the word all, because our success needs to look like our region.
Yeah. Dennis, what do you think Detroit's going to look like in 2030, or what do you hope it at least looks like?
I think Detroit in 2030 will have a more robust middle class. We will have a significantly improved education system, be that public schools, enhanced by private, parochial, etc. I think that our the contributions from different segments of our economy will be much more varied and robust. I think that we'll have a very significant startup culture, which has already been incubated now. We're going to have Josh Luber from StockX talk about the success that he's had growing one of the leading and most recognized tech startups in the country, born right here in Detroit, and why he was able to do that, and why Detroit is a unique place and makes sense for others to come follow in his footsteps to do that. I think that we will have diverse civic, business, and political leadership, more so than we have now, and we probably have some of the most diverse leadership in our region than anywhere else in the country, but I think that will continue to evolve. So I'm excited. I'm excited for my two sons who will hopefully grow up in Detroit and go off and be educated and come back here and contribute at some point, and to what they will experience in the year 2030.
All right, all right. The restaurant business is doing okay?
It's incredible. Central Kitchen and Bar, put a plug.
Yeah. Well, you got a prime spot right there on campus.
8.5 years
Circle.
old. We're doing well. I got a great leadership team down there, great chef in the kitchen.
All right, and you're working on you've got the Meyer deal coming up.
It's come break ground this summer.
Jefferson.
213 apartment units, over a 40,000 square foot grocery store.
All right. Sandy, final question. It's not too late for people to get involved with the conference if they want?
You can still register. If you're a chamber member, it's about $208 to attend, so it's a great value.
Coming up, Michigan members of Congress Debbie Dingell and Fred Upton. He's from the west side of the state. She's from southeast Michigan, and he's a Republican. She's a Democrat, and they are Michigan's bipartisan team. They've been here before. Welcome back to the both of you. I want to start certainly with you, Debbie Dingell. Our official condolences for all that you've been through, and condolences to you as well. Love of your life, but long dear friend, and what a wonderful, magnificent service. So.
You were his friend, and your father was his friend.
Yeah,
a lot of memories.
We were. We'll all miss him, and we'll be here to support you as well. Do we have, and this is the million-dollar question that you are facing right now, do we have a national emergency?
I have real concerns about what the president said this last week. I've looked at some leading Republicans in terms of what they're saying. It is a precedent, you know. And And this almost dates back, well, it really does date back to Richard Nixon. You remember that he impounded money during the Vietnam War, and it was reversed. The courts came in and reversed that. What's happened, in my view, since then is that there's always been some reprogramming of dollars that Congress has appropriated. There might be an earthquake, there might be a, some tragic event, and they've taken from one pot of money and they've put it into another. But when they've done that, you've had the concurrence of the Republican and the Democrat on that appropriation subcommittee to make sure that it's kosher.
So you're worried that if you set this precedent
I'm worried about
that if you have a Democratic president
Absolutely.
down the line, they may
president.
come in and do it with global warming or with gun control.
Any precedent that's there. The Constitution is pretty clear that taxing and spending issues originate in the Congress. And we don't have a king. We have three branches of government. And this is going to, what the president said this last week, we'll see how it fares, but it's going to be tested. It's going to be tested in the courts. It's going to be tested, I think, in both the House and the Senate.
This is very clear to me. By the way, there were demonstrations around the state this week. I don't know why they picked mine as the only political office of anybody that they picked. I don't quite have the energy to get out there and protest yet, but I went so that they would know that I would use every ounce of my being to make sure the president doesn't take, I do not believe the Constitution gives them this authority. People need to remember that there are three equal branches of government, but the Congress and the executive branch are equal, and the Congress has a responsibility to keep in check the executive when he crosses the line, and he has crossed the line. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We've gotten a conference report on trying to keep this border safe, but what the president is doing is a violation of the Constitution, and we have got to protect our Constitution at all costs. And we keep attacking its fundamental principles of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press. This is just another attack on our Constitution.
As soon as you go back to Congress, I'm sure there's going to be a resolution saying that you don't agree with this.
I will be voting for it.
You're going to be voting for it. How will you vote, Congressman?
I want to see how it's written, and I'm talking to a lot of colleagues on both sides. I want to make sure there's no poison pills that are in there, something that's bad, but we'll see. The president was warned that if he did this was Mitch McConnell, it was widely reported, that he went to the president and said, if you do this, you're going to face a resolution of disapproval, and it's likely to pass in both the House and the Senate. If it does that, as they said this last week, that they would veto that resolution. So the question is, are there the 2/3 votes, knowing that this would be the president's first veto, are there the 2/3 votes necessary and required to override that veto in both the House and the Senate? And I don't know the answer to that.
We'll hear more from Dingle and Upton about their bipartisan efforts in Washington next week. Thanks to all my guests. I'm Chuck Stokes. Have a great week.